Good afternoon. Today's time of devotional is going to be just a little bit different than the past few that we've had. We'll hopefully be jumping into a new kind of series of devotionals next Friday. But today I wanted to spend some time talking for just a moment about some advice that I would give to our graduating seniors. But before you go too far, if you're not a graduating seniors, we only have a few who are graduating this year. This advice really applies to anybody going through transition, which I'll share with you in a minute why I think that is everybody right now. But I would encourage you, if you have some advice that you would give to the graduating seniors, please leave that in the comments below. Just let them know, and hopefully we can find a way to share that with them. I think it would be really neat to see all the advice from those who are far wiser than I am that you have to give to these graduating seniors. But as we look forward to Senior Sunday, graduation was just this past Saturday for our high school graduates, 2 weeks ago for our college grad. And this coming Sunday, 2 days from now, will be our Senior Sunday celebration, where we pause and celebrate this accomplishment, this milestone, and help them launch into this new beginning for them. But they're not the only ones who are going through a time of transition. Their transition is pretty noticeable. It's one that most people expect to be a time of transition. But all of us right now are going through a time of transition. This church, especially, if you are a member at the Bella Vista Church of Christ, we're going through a lot of transition right now. As Jeff mentioned on Sunday, we're adding new shepherds in the coming weeks. Randall, after 30 some odd years of service here at the Bella Vista Church of Christ, is going to be retiring. And that's a huge milestone, and we are sad to see him leave, but it's going to be a time of transition for us. But even beyond that, as Jeff mentioned on Sunday again, it's the beginning of wedding season. And while many of you may not be getting married, you may have family who are getting married, and therefore you are adding somebody new to your family. I know we've had several new babies who have been born, so maybe you're a new parent, a new aunt or uncle, you have a new cousin, a new grandbaby. And then, of course, even if you are not a member of the Bella Vista Church of Christ and having someone new added to your family through marriage or through birth or adoption or whatever it might be, I think that everybody in the world around us is experiencing a time of transition as we go back to normalcy, whatever that really means. But as we begin this transition back into normalcy, there are a lot of things that I think we will begin to notice, a lot of challenges that we will face, and there's some advice that I hope will help all of us as we go through this time of transition, if we can focus on this. And the advice is pretty simple. But the advice that I could hope to give, and this isn't my own advice, this is, I've heard it most recently from Andy Stanley, but I've heard it from dozens of people, and he's heard it from dozens more people, I'm sure. It's advice that's been shared over and over and over again, is that as Christians, I hope that your faith is not based on the belief that Jesus is the Messiah. I hope that your faith is not all that your faith relies on, because if your faith is just reliant on the belief that Jesus is the Messiah, then you are sure to struggle. And the reason I say that, and again, it's not just from me, it's not just from Andy Stanley. In fact, it goes all the way back to James, the brother of Jesus, who in his letter says, even the demons believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and they are fearful of it. They are terrified of him because they know the power of God. They know the power of Christ as a part of the Godhead. And we see all throughout Scripture that belief is not enough to sustain a faith in periods of difficult transition. In fact, Jesus doesn't call us to belief, but what Jesus calls us to is to follow him. We see that all throughout the Gospels, but especially I think of Mark chapter 1 and Luke chapter 5, where he calls his disciples, and even in Matthew chapter 8, talking to the man, he tells him to go sell all his possessions and come follow me. Jesus says it many, many times. He says it to Peter. He says it to James, John. He says it to Matthew. He says it we can assume, I think, to all of his early apostles, all of his early disciples, Jesus approaches them, he comes to them, and he gives them the simple command of follow me. Because Jesus knew that a faith based on belief wouldn't last. But a faith based on following him, active faith, a faith that relies on action, on following Jesus, on shaping our lives around him, on transforming ourselves to look more like him through his Spirit, is a faith that can last. And so I hope to see, again, some of the advice that you may have to these graduating seniors, some of the advice that you may have to those going through a difficult period of transition right now. But I hope that for all of us, as we look at our faith, as we try to center our faith around something that will last, something that is eternal, I hope that we have a belief that Jesus is the Messiah. That is incredibly important. But if that is the only thing that our faith leads us to, we're going to fall short. I hope that instead our faith can lead us to follow a life of following Jesus, a life of dedicating everything that we have to him, a life of self-denial, because we know that it's not through our will and our desires that we can have life, but it's through denying ourselves, picking up the cross of Jesus, following him into his will, his desires, his hope, his glory, and his reward, that we're able to receive all the blessings that God has in store for us and the church as a whole. I pray that during this time of transition, that we will be people who are actively seeking to follow Jesus into where he is leading us.